What's up, Bears fans? Harrison Graham here. It is the day before the big playoff game, Bears versus Packers at Soldier Field tomorrow night. Coming up, we got a full episode where I already filmed a mailbag. Plus, I spent a few minutes talking about why the pressure is actually more on the Packers heading into this game and in this game. So stay tuned for that. Couple of injury updates, though, here on a Friday. Kyler Gordon, who technically remains on short-term IR as we are filming this, released a hype video on his TikTok account, and in the video it says, "See you Saturday." Now, he practiced in full the last day of practice this week, which was yesterday. The way the coaches talked about him all week was as if he is going to play. The only reason he was listed as questionable, in my opinion, unless there's something unforeseen that has happened or will happen, is because technically they have to activate him to the 53-man roster, which they have until tomorrow at 3 o'clock to do so. There's really no advantage to doing it necessarily, like right now versus 2 o'clock tomorrow. It doesn't really change anything. So I fully expect him to play. I don't think he releases that on social media if he's not playing. So Dennis Allen said he's going to be part of the game plan, so Kyler Gordon is going to play. And as we've said all week, the only question is, A, how much does he play, and B, how much like the Kyler Gordon we know and love does he look like? He's only played in 3 games this year. How effective can he be? Those are all questions we won't really know until the game gets started, but at least he's going to be out there. It gives the Bears another player to put on defense, a unit that has been struggling. It can't hurt, right? Especially with C.J. Gardner-Johnson out. So Kyler Gordon is back. Who's not back is Dontayvion Wicks, the Packers wide receiver. They had expressed confidence throughout the week that he would be available, but he did not clear concussion protocol, and he was downgraded to out today. He will not make the trip to Chicago, and he is not playing in this one. So Jordan Love without Dontayvion Wicks. They already put Bo Melton on IR, so it's going to be combination of Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and probably Matthew Golden as the primary receivers for Green Bay. Doubs and Watson obviously still very capable players, but Wicks has had some big games this year, and he had a pretty good game. I think it was the first one at Lambeau Field against Chicago, so him not being available is certainly notable. Now, we're still waiting and seeing on Zach Tom and Javon Bullard. Those will probably be more like game-time decisions tomorrow, especially Tom, who they held out of practice yesterday. That's a big one, their right tackle, but Wicks is one of their better receivers, so that is certainly noteworthy as well. So a couple of injury updates, even more good news on Kyler. Again, I think we've known he was going to play, but further confirmation, and we got confirmation that Dontayvion Wicks is out. All right, that's going to do it for this part of the video. Stay tuned. I talk about why the pressure is more on Green Bay tomorrow instead of Chicago, based on some storylines out there. And then we answer your questions as well via mailbag form. So stay tuned, bear down, let's go. I'm Harrison Graham. Coming up here on this episode of Chicago Bears Now, we will get into a mailbag. So use that hashtag Bears. You can also super chat to get your questions answered. But there's been this kind of storyline going around this week that I actually agree with. I think the Packers are under more pressure than the Bears in this game, despite the Bears being at home, despite the Bears winning the division, and despite the Bears being the 2 seed. Now, don't get me wrong. Both teams are under a lot of pressure. If you're in the playoffs, you're under pressure because if you get into the tournament, the goal is to win. So every game, every snap, every series, it's high pressure. I'm not downplaying that. But when you just factor in some of the storylines around the Packers, there's real talk out there. If the Bears knock the Packers out, that Matt LaFleur's future in Green Bay could be in doubt. Now, I think that's crazy, but that was out there earlier this year. It's resurfaced down the stretch as they've lost some big games. So that is a pretty high-pressure thing for Matt LaFleur as he's entering the last year of his contract in 2026. And Ed Policy said before the year, I don't believe in lame duck coaches. So that is something to watch. Jordan Love's a $55 million quarterback. He's had a good year, but one playoff win in 2 years, and in the 2 playoff losses, he has 5 interceptions. So how does he play? Does he live up to that contract? Caleb's under pressure, but he's in the second year of his rookie deal, right? Also,
Super Bowl expectations. They make that big trade for Micah Parsons. Now he's out. He tore his ACL, but they went all in this year, and they're the 7th seed. So to not even win a playoff game would be pretty disappointing for the Packers. The Bears are ahead of schedule in a lot of ways. It is just year one for Ben Johnson. Again, I'm not downplaying the moment for the Bears. I want the Bears to win the Super Bowl. I think they can go on a run. I'm going to be stressful as hell when that game kicks off Saturday night. But if we're being honest and in a vacuum looking at this, the Green Bay Packers are under more pressure than the Chicago Bears. That doesn't mean the Bears should play completely free. It's still a high-stress situation, but I think it's something worth discussing. Now, that being said, I think it would be insane to fire Matt LaFleur. Who are you going to replace him with? John Harbaugh? Okay. John Harbaugh's got probably a longer and better resume overall, but it's not like it's insanely better if you just compare individual years. Yes, he has the Super Bowl. LaFleur doesn't have one, hasn't been to one, but I would celebrate if they fired Matt LaFleur. Jordan Love would have to learn a new offense for the first time in his career. I just think that would be ridiculous if the Packers did that. But hey, if you're the Bears, you got a chance to get him fired because that storyline, that narrative, those talking points have been out there. Who do you guys think is under more pressure on Saturday night? Type CHI for the Bears, FGB for the Packers. I think it's pretty clearly the Packers, but when you're in the big dance, you're playing your rival, the Bears are under pressure too. Don't get it twisted. All right, hashtag Bears or Super Chat. Get those questions answered. Big Dumper with the $5 Super Chat. Has your opinion on what QBs you take over Caleb changed with the season he had? Oh, definitely. I think I did my full top 32 quarterback rankings for the projected starters on my other YouTube channel, 4Verts. I want to say I had Caleb like 19th or 20th heading into this year. I'd have to double check. He's definitely surpassed a lot of people on that list. I mean, like, Geno was ahead of him, I think. Tua was ahead of him. I'm safe to say he will enter the top 15 of my list next year. With the strong playoff run, he could push for top 10. He finished top 10 in a lot of big categories. Passing yards, touchdowns, fewest interceptions. I think he was close to top 10 in QB, either QBR or one of those rating metrics. I'd have to look, but obviously accuracy needs to come up. We know that. But, yeah, he's definitely – the arrow has been pointing up throughout the season. Ben said it himself, especially the second half of this season. He has been a much different quarterback than he was when Johnson first took the job. All right, we got Jack Cole with the $5 Super Chat. I want to see more pressure on early downs and take a couple shots early. Hopefully that will open up the run game a little bit. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind a couple early shots. And I did mention that on our early preview is, it feels like when they have blitz, it's only been on important third downs, which, listen, sometimes you want to turn up the heat on third down. That's totally fine. But, sneak in a 1st and 10 blitz. Try and steal a play, right? I think you can work those in there if you're Dennis Allen and just be a little bit less predictable. Now, it's tough, right? When you have injuries, your pass rush is struggling, all those type of things. It's hard to be, to catch opposing offenses off balance when you just don't have the ideal personnel, and the good personnel you do have is banged up. But I still think there are different things you can do, and this would be an example of one of those, is mixing in some early down blitzes in this football game. All right, today's show is sponsored by Ethos. When you bring a child into the world, your perspective changes overnight. That was certainly true for my wife and I when we had our son a couple of years ago. And for me, part of loving my family meant thinking about their future even in uncomfortable ways. Life insurance is not a fun topic, but it's one you need to think about, and I'm so glad I found out about Ethos. I carry a lot of responsibility in my household. If something happened to me, there are real consequences like mortgage payments, tuition, everyday bills. Those things don't just disappear. Thinking about that used to feel overwhelming, but taking steps to protect my family financially changed that. That's why I got life insurance through Ethos. With Ethos, you can get life insurance in as little as 10 minutes. Ethos has no medical exams, just a few easy health questions online. You can get same-day coverage without ever leaving your house. You can get a quote in seconds, apply in minutes, get same-day coverage. Application times may vary. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos now by going to ethos.com/NFL Daily. Like I said, in as little as 10 minutes, you can get a free quote and up to $3 million in coverage at ethos.com/NFL Daily. That is ethos.com/NFL Daily. Ethos.com/NFL Daily. Application times and rates may vary. Check it out today. Kittis, how would you compare Ben Johnson's offense in Chicago versus his offense in Detroit? Are they the same or have they been different? I mean, they're clearly not carbon copies. Now, there's a lot of concepts that he uses in this offense. A lot of the quick passing game stuff, like a lot of the plays that Loveland makes on these quick slants and stuff, you saw him do that with LaFleur a lot. A lot of the over-the-middle passing, those timing concepts, he did a lot with Jared Goff. But clearly he's leaned in some to Caleb's skill set. But he's also really challenged Caleb with the under-center play action game, which is a lot of the stuff he does with Jared Goff. So I think you've seen a marriage of Ben Johnson's principles and Caleb Williams' skill set kind of come together nicely. Now, it's not a finished product, but I don't think it was ever going to be a finished product in year one. Day, let's call it, since OTA's 200 compared to day one, it's clearly a much improved situation. So, the run game has kind of evolved as the season has gone on as well. So you see a lot of the conceptual things and personnel packages that he liked to run in Detroit. A lot of 12 personnel here as well, but it's certainly not exactly the same, and that's because Caleb's a different quarterback than Jared Goff. Been a Bears fan since 3. I think Tyreek Stevenson should sub at nickel this game. He could be very intriguing at that spot. Thoughts, Harry? Well, with Kyler Gordon almost certainly playing, I would not expect to see that. I have said it a couple times, though, when the Bears have had issues at nickel, like, why not try Tyreek Stevenson there? Now, maybe they just don't view him as a viable option there. I don't know. In general, I would like to see Tyreek Stevenson play more. That's been a hot button topic this week of, do you bench Jalen Johnson? Do you bench Jonah Wright? Do you go to a rotation there? I am fine if they start Jalen and Deshaun, but if one or both those guys is getting picked on early, I think Tyreek deserves an opportunity. I was surprised to see him get 0 snaps last week. I expect him to play some this Saturday night. Be sure to join us on Saturday night. Bears-Packers watch party, Saturday night, 5 o'clock Central. We will go live. That is 2 hours before kickoff. Thank you guys so much for helping us reach 150,000 subscribers. Our agreement was if we did that before Saturday, we would go live for 2 hours before kickoff. So we're doing it. Myself, Cullen Brown. It's going to be fun. Be sure to subscribe and join us. Shy to God with the $5 super chat. Bears ideal outcomes this weekend. Bears win. 49ers win. Panthers win. Bears host Panthers next weekend. Yeah, I mean, I think that's clearly the ideal outcome, right? Any outcome, that's the only path, by the way, to getting Carolina at home next week, because if the Panthers win and the Eagles win, you'll host the Eagles. I still think that would be an okay outcome as well, but if Carolina somehow beat the Rams and you played them at home next week, I mean, what an opportunity. You get to play a Southern team that's been sporadic at best this year at home in what should be a cold game with the chance to go to the NFC Championship. I mean, that is a golden opportunity. Now, at the same time, I'd be shocked if Carolina beat the Rams for a second time. They beat them earlier this year. But you never know. It's one game. That's the thing about football. It's not a best of 5. It's not a best of 7. A lot of things can happen in a 60-minute football game. So we'll see. We'll see how it all plays out. Don Rafa, appreciate the #Bears question. What do you think of the discussion about the Packers looking for revenge on the Love hit from last game? Well, if you're watching live on Thursday, I got thoughts. We're going to get into those. But, Josh Jacobs chose his words fairly carefully, but I don't know how much he gained by saying what he said, which was basically that players are pissed off about what happened and that we're not going to play dirty necessarily, but we're going to protect our guy. Kind of indirectly saying, like, they might have some extracurriculars. We'll see. Look, I know Booker got fined for it. I think that's more of a result of the injury Love suffered, to be honest. If Love did not exit the game, I don't think Booker would have been fined. But this league protects its quarterbacks, and I understand why they do, because it's a multi-billion-dollar business, and the quarterbacks make it go. So Yeah, more thoughts coming up, so stay tuned. Predict the score, Bears, Packers, who wins? And what is the final score going to be? I want to hear it from you guys in the comment section of this video. Bears, Packers, final score. Let's go. All right, XSPX. Why was Detroit able to have our number this year, and should we be concerned? Also, I found out my grandfather also watches you the other day. Oh, that's awesome. Tell him I said hello, and that I appreciate it. I said coming into this year, I did not think the Bears were a good matchup for Detroit. And it's not like because Dan Campbell knows Ben Johnson or anything like that. It's because their receivers are bad matchups for the Bears corners, even if everyone's fully healthy. Jalen Johnson, as great as he is, he struggles against smaller, twitchy receivers. The Lions have two of those, and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams. Same with Tyreek Stevenson. He's a physical corner at the point of attack. He'd rather be physical on the boundary. Like Isaac Tesla, I think Stevenson can guard him just fine, right? So I think it's a tough matchup for the Bears secondary because they don't have twitchy DBs. Kyler Gordon's the one guy, but he didn't play in either game. So I think it was a tough X's and O's matchup. And that's the thing about football. Just because Detroit wasn't a great team, they were still very good and a tough matchup for Chicago. Appreciate the question. We've got time for a few more. DC Viper, people seem to be comparing Nagy and Johnson's first year. Do they feel similar to you? I think Johnson has a more sustainable situation, even if the Bears are a little ahead of schedule. The one reason being, I think Caleb is ascending clearly. And even if Bears fans, if we thought Mitch, his arrow was pointing up at the time, it wasn't pointing up in the sense of this guy could be a top 10, maybe even a top 5 quarterback at some point. It's more like, okay, like Mitch could be the franchise guy, maybe a top 15 guy, be a good game manager with maybe a little more juice. Clearly that wasn't the case. But Mitch's ceiling, I never felt, I don't want to speak for all of you, I never felt like Mitch was going to be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. Like 2018 was really, Vic Fangio's defense was incredible, and the offense was solid, opportunistic. They could run the football with Jordan Howard, Tariq Cohen, Allen Robinson made timely plays. Mitch ran around and made some plays. But yeah, I think that's the big difference. And Ben Johnson is a much better play caller too than Matt Nagy ever was. So if the Bears defense can just improve and come along, I think the offense is here to stay. And that was not the case in 2018. All right, appreciate all the questions. I did finally catch up on some DMs, so fire away. That way I have more to catch up on. At HGramNFL on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I might have some TikTok DMs to catch up on, but anyway, I'm over there now too. At HGramNFL, TikTok. Go support, help me grow on that platform. My name is Harrison Graham. Bear down.